It's movie rewind time. In today's video, we will be going through a 2022 epic historical film, The Northman. Let's get started and spoilers ahead. It's the year 895. Prince Amaleth watches as his father, King Allvendel War Raven, returns home with his men after a series of conquests. Allvendel greets his son and wife, Queen Gudrun, as they host a ceremony. They are visited by Allvendel's brother, Filnir. The jester Hymir makes a crass joke about Gudrun, which Filnir dislikes but Allvendel says is merely a jest. As Allvendel has been injured in battle, he is set to make Amaleth his successor. He brings his son to Hymir, where they engage in a ritual where they drink a special concoction. Allvendel has Amaleth promise that, if he is ever slain, that Amaleth will fulfill his vow to avenge him. Amaleth agrees, and Hymir takes Amaleth's teardrop, for it is to be the last one that he will ever shed until the day he will need it again. The following morning, Amaleth is out in the woods with Allvendel, when several men ride in on horses and fire arrows at Allvendel. Although he attempts to fight them off, the men overwhelm him and stab him with their swords until he is on his knees. Leading the men is Filnir, who is attempting to usurp his brother. Allvendel warns Filnir that while he may have killed him today, his reign over the kingdom will be brief. Filnir beheads Allvendel and orders his men to find and kill Amaleth. The boy runs and hides, nearly caught by Filnir's soldier Finner. But Amaleth cuts off his nose and flees. As he runs back into his village, he finds Filnir's men pillaging and murdering the citizens, and Filnir is carrying Gudrun out as she kicks and screams. Amaleth runs to the ocean where he takes a boat and sails away, repeating a vow to himself. "I will avenge you, father. I will save you, mother. I will kill you, Filnir." Years later, in the land of Rus, basically Russia, Amaleth is part of a group of Vikings and grows up to be a berserker after a ritual of their own. The men later raid a village where Amaleth slaughters the soldiers, and the rest of his group goes after women and children. The surviving citizens are taken in as slaves. At night, Amaleth wanders into a dark and empty temple. He sees a vision of a blind Cirrus Bjork, who presents him with the last tear that he shed to remind him of his vow that he made as a child. She tells him that he will now have another chance to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his uncle. The next day, Amaleth speaks to fellow berserker Eiríkur, who states that Filnir had been overthrown from his kingdom by King Harald of Norway, forcing Filnir and his people to relocate to Iceland. Amaleth then sees a raven, taking it as a sign from his father to carry out his mission of revenge. Amaleth brands himself with the mark of a slave and swims to a slave boat with other Rus people. There, he meets a young Slavic woman named Olga, who claims to have the power to corrupt the minds of men. As he sleeps next to her, Amaleth sees visions of Allvendel, Gudrun, Hymir, a special sword, and Olga herself. The boat appears to have capsized during a storm, killing some slaves while the survivors swim to land. They are taken by Filnir's men and brought to his farm, where he has taken Gudrun as his wife and fathered a son with her, Gunnar, in addition to Filnir's eldest son Thorir. Filnir takes note of Amaleth, not recognizing him but noting his size and strength. He also takes a special interest in Olga. Later that night, Amaleth sneaks out of his tent and attempts to go after Filnir. He sees an animal and follows it into another tent where he meets a he-witch. He is holding the head of Hymir, whom Filnir had murdered after cutting out his tongue, eyes, and ears. The he-witch manages to create a communication between Amaleth and Hymir, where Hymir tells Amaleth about the mighty sword Draugr, which Amaleth will use to carry out his revenge. Amaleth comes upon Draugr's location, where it rests with the corpse of a former king. As Amaleth attempts to grab the sword, the corpse appears to come to life and fight Amaleth in a duel, ending with Amaleth swinging his axe upon the skeleton and beheading it before he can pull the sword from its bony hands. When he returns to the village, he nearly uses the sword on several men, but decides to hold off for now. He then watches as Filnir attempts to have his way with Olga, but she repels him by smearing her menstrual blood on him. The slaves are later put to a game of Nattaliker. It's basically a violent version of lacrosse, where players can beat and kill their opponents to win. Gunnar runs into the field as he wishes to play along, but the other team's captain, Thorfinnr, knocks Gunnar over so hard that he hits his head and is knocked unconscious. As his mother and father rush onto the field, Amaleth attacks Thorfinnr and headbutts him repeatedly until his skull is caved in. Amaleth is thanked by Filnir and Thorir after Gunnar regains consciousness, and Amaleth is granted a higher position among the slaves. The slaves later gather for a party in the woods where they have sex with each other. and where Amaleth consummates his relationship with Olga. After they finish making love, they make vows to bring down Fylnir. Over the next few nights, Amaleth takes Draugr and slaughters some of Fylnir's men, including Thorir's friends. He hangs their corpses outside for Thorir to find, where he yells in despair over the loss of his friends and vows to find the man responsible. That same evening, Amaleth kills 2 people about to engage in a sacrificial ritual with a slave woman. He hangs their disemboweled corpses for Fylnir and his men to find. Meanwhile, Olga aids Amaleth by slipping some of Fylnir's men hallucinogenic mushrooms that drive them insane and cause some of them to kill themselves. In another instance, Amaleth gets wolves to howl, riling up Fylnir's dog to attack him and prompt him to stab the dog to death. Amaleth later goes to Gudrun's room where he reveals himself to her. She is stunned to see him, but not out of relief for her son being alive. Although he tells her he is there to free her, Gudrun reveals that she is not Fylnir's prisoner, but that she genuinely loved him and agreed to marry him. It was she who asked Fylnir to kill all Vandal, as he had taken her as a slave and raped her, which is how Amaleth was conceived. She had also asked Fylnir to kill Amaleth as well. Gudrun tries to seduce Amaleth, but he pulls back. Enraged by this revelation, he impales Thorir in his sleep and cuts out his heart. Fylnir weeps over his son's body and begins to accuse the slaves of being guilty of Thorir's murder. He begins to kill some of the slaves, but when he gets to Olga, Amaleth steps out with a bag that he claims contains Thorir's heart and will give it to him in exchange for Olga's life. After fighting off some of the men, Amaleth becomes overwhelmed. Fylnir takes the bag, but Amaleth says it is the heart of the dog he killed. Amaleth is taken prisoner and is brutally beaten so that he may give up the location of Thorir's heart. When Fylnir and his men have their backs turned, a pack of ravens, apparently sent by Odin, come to free Amaleth. He flees on a boat with Olga, but when he kisses the wound where Fylnir placed his blade on her, he sees a vision of twins that are meant to be Amaleth and Olga's children. Knowing that they will never be safe as long as Fylnir lives, Amaleth swims back to the farm to finish his mission. Olga weeps for Amaleth but makes a prayer to guide him. Upon his return, Amaleth slaughters Fylnir's men and frees the rest of the slaves. He is attacked by Gudrun, who begins stabbing him until he impales her through the heart. He is then attacked by Gunnar, who also stabs him repeatedly, but Amaleth kills him with a slash to the chest. Fylnir finds the body of his wife and child, and then says to Amaleth that they will duel at the gates of hell. Amaleth travels to the volcano Hekla, where he comes upon Gudrun and Gunnar's bodies and pays respects to them. He finds Fylnir and they engage in a duel called Holmgang. With their swords, they fight over the lava, with Fylnir nearly overpowering Amaleth, but the prince gathers his strength and wits to continue the fight. The battle ends when Fylnir stabs Amaleth through the heart, but he succeeds in decapitating his uncle. Amaleth is dying, but he sees a vision of Olga with their twins, one of whom will become the Maiden King that the seers had prophesied. A Valkyrie spirit then arrives to escort Amaleth to Valhalla, and that was the Northman. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.